What state is the Maltese economy in?
It is definitely overheating. And in fact, over the past years, we as the Malta Chamber have been repeatedly drawing the attention of our policymakers to be careful that it does not continue to overheat.
You have been pushing for a new economic model.
Yes.
What kind of model are you after?
First of all, we believe that we need to move towards a less labor-intensive economy and one which is more focused on high-value economy. We have a number of issues with traffic, we have issues with our utilities, and the reality is as well that the influx of workers that we have experienced have had very marginal impact on when it comes to skills and expertise, which will lead us to become a high-value added economy. So what we need here is, first of all, a complete overhaul of our education system. The country also needs to gear itself more towards enhancing the uptake of digitalization and automation. And last but not least, we need to be more attractive to the highly skilled third country nationals and foreigners who can help us.
You are proposing also the capping of TCNs.
Yes.
Does it make sense for the hospitality industry, for instance, for the construction industry? And when so many industries are talking about staff shortages.
Our proposal for the capping of TCNs is not a cross-cutting proposal across the board. We have also recognized and acknowledged that there are a number of essential services which will continue to depend on third country nationals, such as, for example, the healthcare industry, the waste collection industry. We are also cognizant of the fact that there are some jobs that Maltese workers do not want to do, jobs which are still essential for the running of our country, and therefore on that aspect we will need to rely on third country nationals as well. There is also the element of seasonality, and this is where tourism comes in as well. So there is an element of requirements of third country nationals, particularly when it comes to the seasonality of tourism. The manufacturing industry as well is taken into consideration by us. However, we need to ask another question beyond that. Why are these manufacturing companies opting to employ third country nationals?
Because they rely on cheap labor.
Not necessarily, and here is where I don't agree with you. If you have highly skilled employees, a job that a low-skilled employee or someone that you need to constantly retrain because of the constant turnover will do a job in 2 hours, whereas someone who is better skilled and who has been with you for a number of years can do that job in half the time.
So why are they employing TCNs then?
Because they are not finding the required workforce here in Malta.
Do you agree with the crackdown on foreign workers on TCNs in Malta that currently is underway?
As the Malta Chamber, we have constantly advocated to ensure that every company operates in an ethical and legal way. So in fact, it was also the Malta Chamber that was the first to spearhead the regulation of the temping agencies, because we want a fair environment and a level playing field for all.
Okay, you're also suggesting tax exemptions for highly qualified Maltese who are currently working abroad. What makes you think that the Maltese who are currently abroad would want to come back to Malta?
We need these areas of specialization. We need to do more with less. We need to have niches where, rather than depending on production and number of people, we depend more on the value itself. For example, technology. We have a number of companies who are opting to invest and open their companies abroad. So Maltese companies, which are even in this day and age, deciding that it is more feasible for them to open abroad. Why? Because other countries are offering a better environment than Malta is actually offering. So this is again the reason why we constantly say we have to look at the situation in a holistic way, address it holistically, and we cannot continue putting forward sporadic decisions and sporadic initiatives. Sporadic initiatives on their own will not work.
It seems that we are in for new historic tax cuts. That's how the Prime Minister described them. You should be happy about this because more people will be having more money in their pockets. They will be able to spend more. Government will also be able to collect more taxes. What's your take?
So, till today, as it is, we do not know the details of this proposal. So we do not know what and who will qualify as the middle class that was mentioned by the Prime Minister. We do not know the mechanics of how it will work. We just hope that it will not just be another handout which is sent by post. First of all, because it is totally unenvironmentally sustainable. And also because we believe if it needs to be an impetus in the spending power, it needs to be given gradually throughout the salaries paid per year. So one begs the question and one asks, if it was not possible not to tax COLA last year, if it was impossible to implement a number of proposals last year because of financial constraints, now we are in an excessive deficit procedure. How are we going to contain?
So you expect government to reduce its expenditure. In which areas?
We also need to look at a number of PR events which are costing the country loads of thousands of money year on year. We need also to look at, for example, how a number of authorities are looking and doing their marketing campaigns. Are they really getting the best return on investment?
Your pre-budget document calls for the introduction of a whitelisting system. Any companies and contractors that come to mind that should be on the blacklist?
A whitelist is a list which spells out the criteria which make you eligible to tender. Blacklisting goes one step further. Blacklisting, and it should be public blacklisting, will list the defaulting companies who have, for example, court cases pending. So these lists, these criteria need to be very clear. And
you're proposing naming and shaming?
These public lists, yes, they will work in the best interest of ethical business, but as well as in favor of the consumer.
Any companies that come to mind?
I think it would be unfair to mention any companies because there are no criteria set. And it would be unfair to mention one company versus another.
But you're in favor of naming and shaming?
Yes, but that is why we are saying that the criteria need to be set down.
The Malta Chamber has this habit of preaching good governance to government and to public administration. What's your stand on your members who do not give a hoot about transparency?
From our point of view, our position is very clear. We have repeatedly said multiple times that we stand only for ethical businesses and that we will not defend any businesses who would be operating in an unethical way. So much so that we carry out a due diligence before accepting membership within the Malta Chamber, as well as our statute is very clear on the code of conduct of our members, and internally we also have an ethics and disciplinary committee in order to look out for any faults that there might be.
Have you ever had to take any action?
Our code of ethics is very clear. It outlines what our members need to be looking at and what they should be adhering to. When it comes to paying taxes, it is the government's role to make sure that all taxes are collected.
But you should be passing on a message.
Yes, and we have passed it repeatedly in all our public statements because these companies, these defaulting companies, are acting in an unfair way on the businesses that are actually always paying on time. So much so that we even have a budget proposal on that front, where we are asking government that in case of ethical businesses who pay their dues on time, be it VAT, be it income tax, be it the national insurance of employees, when they do the payment at source, for example, on income tax, on the corporate tax, rather than being charged a flat rate of 35%, companies which are in line with the local laws should be charged at source at a much lower rate.
The Malta Chamber has been calling for a moratorium on new builds. You have been doing this for quite a while. Do you believe there should be restrictions on boutique hotels?
First of all, we know that we have enough capacity to cater for the amount of tourists that the country can actually take. So it's useless getting in more tourists when we know that our infrastructure does not hold, be it the energy infrastructure, be it the electricity infrastructure, be it the sewage infrastructure, being our traffic network. But what we also need to be looking at is the SPED. The SPED is a planning document which should be mapping out how Malta has to be developed. We have a version dated 2015, which in that document itself, there is a declaration saying that this document needs to be revisited by 2020 because it will be outdated by then. We are in 2024. Not only is SPED not yet updated, but till this very date, we still have an incomplete SPED.
Should there also be a moratorium on construction in general?
We believe that the construction industry is one of the industries that needs to be looked at in a very critical way to make sure that whatever is being constructed is actually suiting where the country needs to go. So recently we came across a study which was explaining that there is an oversupply of offices. So one questions, why is the planning authority still issuing permits for office buildings?
Once again, you are insisting that Malta should gradually reduce energy subsidies. What's your reasoning behind this?
The energy infrastructure, the energy distribution network as it is not adequate to supply the demands of the island. Point one. Point two, we have renewable energy targets which we need to meet. If we're going to leave subsidies going on forever, it means that we are telling people and businesses you can continue operating as usual, which is not the case. We have already had the European Commission warning us that subsidies need to be tapered off.
But your members stand to lose from such a proposal as well.
Our members complain not about our proposals. Our members complain because of the lack of proper distribution network. Our members complain because they want to invest in renewables, but are finding hindrances to take them up. So what we are saying is, start tapering off the subsidies, support companies that are willing to invest in systems which provide energy, which would be self-sufficient for their own operations. So like that, we would be depending less on the traditional energy supply. We would be helping in meeting our energy targets, and we would be having companies who are investing in green energy.
There have been a lot of changes in the top positions of government entities and agencies. Recently, you sounded the alarm on the frequent turnover of CEOs and used quite strong language. The blurring of the lines, you said, between government, civil service, and the political party in power. Really and truly, how does this affect business?
Because we have to start from scratch every time. That is the answer. So if we were to look at our traffic situation, if we were to look at the employment situation when it comes to skills, procedures, etc., every time the top management is changed, be it the CEO or possibly also the other chief positions, the Malta Chamber needs to restart its process from fresh. And we cannot afford to continue repeating the same things year in, year out, and seeing nothing happening.
4 or 5 years ago, you published the
2020.
document. 2020. This week, you said that only 20% of the proposals in that document have been implemented by government. And insofar as last year's pre-budget document, you said that government has only implemented 4 out of a total of 219,
Yes.
if I'm not mistaken. Does this mean that the Malta Chamber doesn't have the government's ear?
I think we need to draw a distinction here between hearing and listening and implementing. I think we have a government that hears, and I'm saying this because every time we ask for a meeting, be it with government ministers, being within government entities, we are always allowed to voice our opinion, but we feel that we are just being heard. We are not being listened to in the proper way, and implementation is not exactly there. So what we want here is, first of all, we want clarity. If government doesn't like our proposals, it should say point blank, no, I don't like our proposals. But with respect to last year's budget document, we had 219 proposals, as you rightly pointed out. 1.8%, which equates to 4 proposals, were fully implemented. Another 18.7% are partially implemented, and only 4 were refused. So there is over 70% practically of proposals still waiting, 80% of waiting to be implemented. We need the government to connect again, to plan, reform and implement ASAP. Last year we said act now. In our pre-electoral manifesto, we had already warned government. and said it is time to step up. So it was time to step up, it was time to act now it's time up. And this is why in the beginning of my interview I said we need to speed up the implementation process of all the decisions that need to be taken in the interest of Malta, some of which might not be exactly popular immediately in the short term, but will definitely be of benefit to the country in the longer term.